Hi, everyone. My name is Kinneret Gordon, and I'm the lead research community officer on the WMF research team. As always, I would like to welcome you to this month's research showcase. Our showcases are meant to recognize and share recent research on or relevant to the Wikimedia project. And today we have a very exciting showcase celebrating a very specific project, which is Wikidata. For those of you who are joining us live, as always, we welcome you to ask questions of speakers in the YouTube chat. We will monitor this channel, and pass questions to the speakers at the end of their presentations. And as always, we kindly ask that attendees follow the friendly space policy and the Universal Code of Conduct. We do not have any more announcements today, so with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Pablo, who will introduce today's theme and speakers.
Thank you, Kinneret. Hi, everyone. I'm Pablo Aragon, a research scientist at the Wikimedia Foundation, and I'm glad to introduce the October 2025 Research Showcase. This month, we are celebrating Wikidata's birthday. It went live on October 29, 2012. The project is 13 years old this month, and 3 years ago, in 2020, we hosted a panel celebrating the 10th anniversary of Wikidata and reflecting on the past, present, and future of the project. But for today's case, we wanted to turn our attention to something also very special, to the real-world impact of Wikidata, how it's being used to advance learning, knowledge sharing, and cultural preservation around the world. So today's showcase will highlight practical use cases that demonstrate the value of Wikidata beyond the platform itself. Our speakers will share how structured open data is shaping education and cultural heritage work in meaningful ways. We are delighted to be joined by two outstanding speakers. First, Dr. Shani Evenstein-Sigalov will share lessons learned from a decade of implementing Wikidata into academia. Dr. Sigalov is an educator specializing in technology and learning, researcher, lecturer, and open knowledge advocate interested in the intersection between education, technology, innovation, and openness. She currently serves as a Marie Curie postdoctoral researcher at the Digital Humanities Research Hub, University of London, working on creating bridges and harnessing generative AI and advanced technologies toward cultural and academic heritage preservation and accessibility through linked open data platforms like Wikidata. Also, she serves on the Wikimedia Foundation Board of Trustees. For the second talk, we have Gustavo Candela, who will discuss how to use Wikidata in GLAM institutions, a labs approach. Gustavo Candela is a lecturer in computer science at the University of Alicante, Spain. His main areas of research are information retrieval, semantic web, research data infrastructures, and collections as data. He has worked with and published on the integration and quality of linked open data in libraries, as well as collections as data and Jupyter notebooks using dataset provided by several GLAM institutions. He is part of the core group of the International GLAM Labs community and the management board of Impact Center of Competence in Digitalization and Wikimedia Spain. We will have these two talks, 20 minutes each, and after each talk, we will have 10 minutes for discussions. So we are very happy to take your questions in the YouTube chat. My colleague Kinneret will monitor the chat and relay the question during the Q&A. And with this, let's turn to our first talk with Dr. Shani.
Thank you so much, Pablo, and everyone at the research team at the foundation. This is an absolute treat and a privilege to be part of the celebration of Wikidata's 13th birthday. I'm going to share my screen. And while I'll do that, I'll share that today's presentation is rather unorthodox in the sense that usually when we do presentations in academia, it's more heavy research. But today I decided to do sort of tasting menu for you because Wikidata has been such a huge part of my academic work and beyond. I was very fortunate that my passion for open knowledge has actually infiltrated my academic work And so I have been engaging with Wikidata on from various angles, and I'm going to try to share today a few of these. So I'm going to try to touch teaching with it, doing some research, doing some outreach, and then I will hopefully get to tell you a bit about my current project at the University of London. So without further ado, I'm going to begin. So I'm going to start with telling you how it all began, teaching with Wikidata. And it actually begins before with Wikidata and with engaging with the community and the movement at large. I joined in 2011 and immediately got involved heavily in education and GlamWiki, and trying to find ways to bring Wikimedia projects, I would say, into the academic curriculum. And there have been all sorts of ways and models to do that. But, and I think the main one has been alternative assessment, right? So different lecturers chose to give their students different assignments. And when I started to engage and assist various lecturers, I was very fortunate in 2013 to be in a position to teach. I was then working for a medical school at Tel Aviv University, and I somehow magically convinced them to allow me to open a course, a full academic 4-credit course, elective course that ran for 9 years. It was called Wikimed. And because of that success, what you see here is the first cohort back in 2013. This was the first full academic course that we had in the world to feature Wikipedia in that way, not just as an assignment, but as a full course. And it was thanks to this experience that I was able to then scale that course. So first I wanted to take it out of just Wikipedia and just medical school and put it more widely to the whole campus. So in 2015, I opened the second course, and it was then in that course, in that year, that I started really to add different sessions into my course that were related to Wikidata, because Wikidata was by then, I think, 2-3 years old, and we started to see the importance of it. So I started experimenting, and each year I ended up adding more and more sessions on Wikidata. And so in 2018, I sort of convinced the university that I actually need to change the course and opened and moved the last one, which ran for 5 years in parallel to Wikimed, and featured both Wikipedia and Wikidata. So that was the first course that we know of in the world to actually feature Wikidata in a 4-credit course. And it was quite an experience. And I was very fortunate, I think it was last year, to sort of reflect on that 10 years journey of implementing Wikipedia and Wikidata specifically in the academic curriculum at Tel Aviv University. And you can see here some numbers. We tried to create the guidelines for the course model, and then talked about the outputs. And this is from an academic publication that was, I think, published last year. And you can see here some numbers. So besides the numbers of students, I really like this number, right? And this number is relevant to the last time that I checked, but this keeps growing. And you can see that from the articles that my students wrote over the years, small, tiny courses of 2 points, just an elective course, we ended up having an actual impact. So just for medicine, as an example, my students wrote 13% of Wikipedia, but the big thing was adding Wikidata as well. And it was a way for us to address different gaps in Wikidata, including the gender gap, but not only that. And the items that were created were viewed for over 75 million now, and I believe this number is now higher. So in that sense, Wikidata has become a platform that we're using in order to teach different capacities. We want it not only to be a place for students to share and learn collaborative skills, but actually be able to do to learn data literacy, not just digital literacy. So there's no other way of doing that better that I know of other than Wikidata. So we ended up wrapping, you can read the article if that's interesting to you, but I would wrap by saying that if I sum up this decade of work of implementing Wikipedia and specifically Wikidata into the academic curriculum, I can say it's complex, right? It requires quite a lot of planning and active tracking and a lot of being at the top of on top of everything with a class. It's not something that you can do lightly, but when it works, it really is great because it allows active learning. It allows students to develop collaborative skills. It gives them a chance to work on high impact topics and really learn data literacy and have a social impact. So I do recommend it to everyone. The students really talked about a unique learning experience, knowing that what they did had actual impact on the world. So it was all in all a really good experience. That sums up really in a nutshell because it's just tasting menu today. And I'm going to move to the second part of this is the article that was published last year, and you can read more if you want. And I want to tell you a bit about my research with Wikidata, and I have to talk about my PhD journey because it focused mainly on Wikidata, and this is how I ended up starting, right? I saw, as an educator and specializing in technology and learning, I saw a lot of research going about Web 2 platforms, including Wikipedia, in relation to education and how we can use it as a learning platform, but not really a lot was there when I was starting to look at it relating to Wikidata and Web3 in general, the semantic web as a learning platform. And that's what I decided to research. And when I started, I said to myself, well, how complicated can it be? It's a platform, right? We have data curation and data extraction, just like in Wikipedia. And users interact with the platform in some way. There are uses, right? They're making different projects, they're doing different things. And these things I thought were leading to learning. And I also thought that I mapped 4 different things that I thought were influencing these interactions. So that was the conceptual framework. I had 2 internal influences, that's motivation and the skills that people were coming to the platform with. And on the external side, the external influences were the technological platform itself and the community that is around. And this is how we started the project. This is how I envisioned how things work. And I had 4 things that I wanted to look at. First, I said, well, really, I could see so many people doing cool projects around the world, but we didn't have anything curated. So in one place, that is, our movement is quite dispersed and many things are happening in different places, but not always in a coordinated way. So it was a good moment for me to pause for a second and map on the different uses, the different case studies that we could find around the world and curate them in one place. And from that extract the main uses and also the benefits and challenges that people found from working with the platform. That was sort of an initial phase. I then went into mapping the interactions with the platform, which ended up being much more than data curation, that data extraction, and also how users themselves perceived their learning through interacting with the platform. The third research question was really about these 4 external and internal aspects that influence interaction, so motivation, skills, technology, and the community. And the last question was really about checking the framework. I wanted to see the interrelation, so I checked, that was more statistical, so checking correlations, checking mediation, checking prediction, and all of that. And in essence, I was very fortunate to be part of this community and had 121 fill out a really long questionnaire. I have to thank the community again for the stamina in filling out this questionnaire. And then interviewed about 60 people, which is quite a lot, but I felt really obliged to do that. I felt I have a special moment in time to actually talk to the people who are involved in our community. So that was a really such a privilege. And people came from all over the world. I was really trying to be as diverse as I could in terms of not only gender, but geography. To some extent, I succeeded. And I'm sure you are curious about the findings. There are many. This was a massive project. And as I mentioned, only just mapping there are 3 main articles that came out of this research project. The first one is already out. 2 are still under peer review and will be published hopefully later on this year. But in essence, what is already out there besides dissertation is the mapping of the different cases, the different stories, the uses and the benefits and challenges. This is the article that was published. And there's a second article about the research, the findings from research question 2 and 3 that is under review, and the last one that is talking about the statistical analysis. So these are coming up. And I think one of the most interesting things that I was able to find, because to me, being part of the community, many of the things that I found didn't really surprise me because I knew the material, so it wasn't that surprising, but that was, right? Statistically examining the original model, I ended up seeing that it's much more complex than I thought at the beginning. You can see here the actual correlations and predictions and reverse prediction that we saw possible from that is actually happening. And findings showed actually that motivation is the most critical direct driver for learning, with technology perceptions as a strong complementary influence. Community emerged as an indirect driver. It was really important as a driver to force people to continue and to learn, and acting mainly through fostering interaction and skills. And that was really nice to learn, really functioned as something that was an outcome more than a prerequisite. So you don't really have to have specific knowledge in order to engage. You can learn as you go. The reverse prediction analysis revealed that there are actually bidirectional relationships, with learning feeding back to the strength of motivation and perception of technology. And this pattern, in essence, challenged my original framework, but I actually liked that we could show that there are more nuances, and it's a much more complex picture than I imagined at first. The main contribution of this research is through the different mapping of the uses, the interactions, and actually what happens with these 4 aspects. But I would say also the conceptual framework and testing it, because we didn't have anything of this sort. And I would say also that this PhD, in essence, is really the first moment in time where we have something more robust around Wikidata as a socio-technical learning ecosystem, and showing that it is advancing data literacy, that it's allowing critical thinking and self-regulated learning. This study really used some educational theories that are usually, again, we can find them in the context of Web 2, but not usually Web 3. So adjusting them and trying to see how we can talk about constructivism, collaborative learning, and heutagogy together in relevance to the semantic web was important in my mind. And there are practical implications from this research for both educators, cultural heritage institutions, but also people who design the platforms, because there was a lot of feedback about things that we can still do, things that we can still change, what inhibited learning, what helped and enhanced it. And of course, there is generative AI that entering really at the end of my PhD. ChatGPT erupted. It was months before I submitted, but because I understood it, I had at least a chapter with the research article that I wrote and will be published about this. I go into it a bit more. But really, it was just an excuse for me once I submitted to the PhD to kind of expand what I was doing beyond just Wikidata. And this is the third part of me just telling you a bit about outreach and also the other project that I'm doing these days. And I'll just do a quick check of how long I still have because I lost track of time. So Kineret, can you tell me how long I have?
You
Yes,
have
and you have 4 minutes.
3 minutes and 15 seconds.
4 minutes, okay. So I'll do it really fast, but I'll say that one of them, when I did my postdoc, my first postdoc, it was an unusual postdoc and I had 6 different projects. 3 of them were highly connected to Wikidata. I'm going to share about one of them where we, in collaboration with TAD, which is the Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence at Tel Aviv University, we launched the first Wikibase in Israel. It was a really interesting experience because it was taking everything we learned about Wikidata and understanding that Wikidata is not enough. It should be an ecosystem of Wikibases and Wikidata, and there should be cross-collaboration between them. So that was a really interesting experiment, and I can talk about what we learned about it really in brief. But we were able to sort of build capacity in Israel to support additional projects like that. And it seems like despite the benefits, there are still various challenges that prevent more academics and more cultural heritage institutions from adopting our platforms. And we do want to scale. So what we've seen in the past 13 years is lots of even big, but specific cases of success. But when we try to scale, there's still work to be done. So what I'm doing now is, as a Marie Curie postdoc fellow at the University of London at the Digital Humanities Research Hub, I have a new project called AI Bridges. And what this does, or what I'm aiming to do in this project, is really trying to bring all of that rich knowledge and experience of the past, I would say 15 years of work, and see how we can harness generative AI in order to help us do this type of preservation that we used to do before, and see if we can do it in an easier way. So this is AI Bridges, and the idea was that we, in essence, had 3 silos of linked open data as a one thing and Wikidata as part of it. We have cultural heritage and academic institutions that curate knowledge and need to make it accessible somehow. And we then have large language models. And I remember the shock of understanding when everything started with ChatGPT, that these big LLMs are mostly not trained on Wikidata. That was a moment of shock for me. And I remember since then trying to think, what can we do to help these LLMs talk to our projects? Because we've had humanity curate linked open data projects, not just Wikidata and Wikibases, but I would say in general, linked open data projects. And they were not available when LLMs are giving answers. So what can we do to sort of bridge these gaps and make sure that we are using artificial intelligence for the betterment of society? And that's what I'll be working on in the coming 2 years. The fellowship just started in September, so it's early days. And this is really, it has 3 tiers. I'm not going to get into it unless people are curious, but I will say that this is sort of a call for action. It's definitely a very ambitious project and way too big for one person to take on. this project will demand collaborative work across the world. And I'm hoping that with everyone else here and beyond in your communities, you can pitch in and become part of it. Either become thought partner. If you're in institution and you want to donate data, we would like to create a pipeline that helps cultural heritage and academic institution donate information in an easier way, low code, no code type of pipeline. And if you're an educator, we do want to engage your students. So all of this is planned for the project. And this is a moment to say, thank you for listening, but also thank you to Wikidata that absolutely changed my life. And I hope yours as well, because it's such an awesome platform. And I have there's no doubt in my mind that especially in the generative AI age, we absolutely need it still. It's essential. And so finding new ways to work together and bring all these different platforms together is what we need to do now. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, you, Shani. I think it was hard to imagine a talk so well framed to celebrate a birthday. I'm not sure if there are questions on YouTube already, but I would like to know if there are questions in the room first. So please, I know Tanya just raised her hand, so please go ahead with your question.
Thank you so much for this, Shani. I am in general very interested in motivations and was wondering how you within your research sort of operationalize motivations, and maybe if you could expand on whether sort of teaching and working with Wikidata motivations might be different from teaching and doing research with or editing Wikipedia, if that question makes sense.
Oh, it absolutely does make sense. And I can go on and on just about motivation. So anyone interested in motivation specifically, go to the actual dissertation to look, because there's so much there. I actually ended up, because it was such a long questionnaire, I had the privilege of really asking people nuanced questions about their motivations, both in curating information, so adding stuff to Wikidata and how it affects their learning, but also about extracting information, and not to mention the other different interactions that we can have with the platform. But these are the two main ones. And it does differ from Wikipedia. And actually that one I knew even before I started the PhD, because anyone who's teaching Wikidata knows that it's like, yes, there's an option to add, but actually adding stuff is easier in Wikidata than it is to Wikipedia. In Wikipedia, it's easier to extract, like to come to an article and read it. And it's much more complex to write down an article. It's a much more complex task. For Wikidata, it's sort of the opposite. It's easier if you know what you're doing, right? If you know what you're doing and you're modeling properly, it's easier sort of to model and to add information than it is to extract, because it requires Sparkle. At least it used to before we had ChatGPT who could help us with queries. But in terms of, so that in itself is a difference in how people approach it. And when we teach Wikidata, it's one of the things that we can say proudly, hey, it's much easier. It's much easier to kind of get engaged. And it's much easier to sort of see the impact, because the impact is global. When you contribute to Wikipedia, the contribution is related to the language that you're working on. By the way, I never teach Wikipedia without Wikidata anymore. It just doesn't, anyone who will, whenever I do a workshop, it's just, you have to talk about the triage of Wikipedia Commons and Wikidata as a whole. And if you work with cultural heritage institutions, I would also always talk about Wikibase, because they would immediately think of, okay, how do I take my institution's knowledge and put it out there? And immediately you have to help them understand not everything belongs at Wikidata. So there's an ecosystem. So again, it's the understanding of that ecosystem and how you can contribute. But I think the motivations that we saw from people are similar in the sense that, yes, it's open knowledge and you we saw the same things of like doing something for the greater good, contributing to the universe, to the humanities commons, doing something that is beyond yourself, that stays there, but also doing something that serves machines. That was a huge turn on for some folks, especially people coming from computer science. And because I had the privilege of actually teaching the course as well as doing the research, I was teaching it for a decade, right? And I met every year, I had students who, some of them came from computer science and all the, not humanities, but the other realm of more exact sciences. And they were flabbergasted because they didn't know Wikidata at all. So that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this amazing platform is here. And no one has told me about that. So it was still a moment of seeing how much we can still do in order to do outreach and actually meet people and tell them that this amazing resource is available. And many of them left saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to use it for the rest of my studies. I'm going to do stuff with it now that I know that it exists. I can continue to contribute in ways that I didn't expect. And for some of them, it was just a meaningful way of doing small contributions. That Wikipedia, it's more complex actually to do it. You have to really tailor people towards doing small bits and tailor it. So it's easier in that sense in Wikidata. I hope I answered. I'll pause here because I can, as I said, go on and on about motivations.
Thank you, Shani. I also have a question, but as I'm hosting today, I have the privilege to decide when to share it. And I think I will share it after Gustavo's thought so I can hear both opinions on that question. So thank you very much, Shani, for your presentation. We'll continue after with you in the final Q&A, and let's go with Gustavo's talk.
Okay, I'll share my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Perfectly.
Okay, well, first of all,
yes, we can see each other as well because you have the Zoom window.
Is that any
Much
better?
better.
Okay, sorry.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to talk about Wikidata. This is a collaborative work that we did in the context of the International GLAM Labs community. So I'm presenting, and I think that we have today with us also Olga and Milena. But this work was done in the context of the International GLAM Labs community, as I mentioned before. And so first of all, I'll talk a little bit about myself. Then I'll talk about the motivation of this work. Then I'll talk a little bit about the work behind this presentation that we did in the context of the International GLAM Labs community. Then I'll go through Wikidata and GLAM. And I also wanted to mention some work that I'm doing at the moment and that it's related to Wikidata too, and also GLAM institutions. And finally, I will be providing some references. So as Sunny said, Wikidata gave me a lot. Part of my PhD is Wikidata. And I used to work in a library for more than 10 years. So you can imagine how I was connecting the bibliographic data at the library to Wikidata. And but at the moment, I'm lecturing in computer science. I'm part of several management boards, but today I want to focus on the International GLAM Labs community, of course, because this work that I'm presenting here is based on this community. But also, I would like to mention that as a thank you to Wikidata, a few years ago, I joined Wikimedia Spain, and at the moment, I'm part of the management board representing GLAM in Wikimedia Spain. So, and also as part of my role in the area, I'm co-chair of the DH Wiki group that I will show you in 10 minutes what it's about. So what is the motivation? I used to do a lot of research based on Wikidata. So if you check my articles, you will see data enrichment, data visualization, data quality assessment. So in the context of the international GLAM Labs community, we thought that it could be interesting to have some kind of an analysis of what was the use of Wikidata in GLAM institutions and what was the purposes. It was my first systematic review as a research article, so I was curious too about how I could do this work. And also, I wanted to analyze, or we wanted to analyze what kind of activities people were doing regarding GLAM and Wikidata. So behind this work and as part of the international GLAM Labs community, we have been working extensively regarding the concept of collections as data, which is about promoting digital collections supporting computational use, but also collections as data is the combination of fair and care principle. I obviously feel more comfortable in the first part, which is about data, but we should not forget about the care principles and also promoting a responsible use. So as I said before, this is based on the international GLAM Labs community. So a lab in a GLAM institution is a physical or digital space in which you can experiment with digital collections in innovative and creative ways. Depending on the institution, you will find only a digital section, but in some institutions, you will find a physical section in which you can play with the books or paintings or whatever. So in case you want to know more about the International GLAM Labs community, you can go to the website. You will find relevant work regarding, as I mentioned before, collections as data, webinars. But I wanted to highlight the book Open a GLAM Lab, which is a book that we published a few years ago that has been translated to several languages and which is available under a CC0 license. And you will find information about what is a lab, how you can set a lab, what kind of people you need for a lab, how can be integrated into the main institution. So in the website, you will find also many examples, well, a dedicated section for computational access in which you will find many projects regarding reproducible code in Jupyter notebooks. We included all the information about these projects in Wikidata, and thanks to this, we were able to provide as a result this kind of charts as the one that you can see in this slide. Another thing that we have in the website is the member map. And as you can imagine, the information about the community is in Wikidata. So what you see here is the visualization provided by the public Sparkle endpoint of Wikidata. And we have the information about the community in Wikidata. And you have a form in case you want to share with us the Wikidata identifier of your organization. And maybe you know how to do it. And if not, please have a look to the website and let us know. At the moment, we have about 100 institutions as our members. And also we have like 400 members in the mailing list. So let's go to the Wikidata and GLAM. So based on this work, we thought that it could be interesting to submit something regarding Wikidata and GLAM to the TPDL conference, which is one of the most relevant events regarding libraries in Europe. So we thought about submitting and doing a systematic review based on this topic. So the goal was to provide a systematic review of Wikidata using GLAM institutions and also to assess the benefits and limitations of using Wikidata in GLAM projects. We had some knowledge regarding institutions such as the National Library of Scotland, museums, digital humanities projects, National Library of Spain, that they were already working with Wikidata to some extent. So we have some kind of background. And what you see in the right side of this slide is some ideas that we already had before we start this work, which is that GLAM were already experimenting with collections as data. They were using Wikidata. They knew about semantic web and link data. There were Sparkle endpoints available. and they were experimenting with linked data and also Wikidata. So we follow this framework, if you want to call it like this, in order to do the systematic review. As I said before, it was my first attempt to do a systematic review. And the first step was performing a selection of 38 articles. We were able to include all the information about these articles using the tool Scholia. The second step was defining research questions. And of course, we use related work as an example in order to define these questions. And finally, we did the analysis and reporting. So what about the research questions and findings? First question was, how is Wikidata described in the current GLAM literature? So we identified 4 groups, as you can see here. The first group is about an ontology and semantic model. Group 2 is about data source. Group 3 is about collaborative knowledge base and graph. And group 4 is about tool and, well, collaborative tool. Question 2 was about what types of experimentation with Wikidata are emerging in the GLAM domain. And we tried to align and map the activities that they were doing in these articles according to the Tadira taxonomy, which is about activities in digital humanities, and is a taxonomy provided by DARIA. And we identified these 6 activities. As you can imagine, you already know them: data curation, data extraction, data enrichment, visualization, data analysis, quality. And the third question was, what are the challenges associated with Wikidata in GLAM? So what we found is mostly quality issues and data coverage, and also completeness, and also that current ontology models in bibliographic catalogs are different because they provide different layers in comparison to Wikidata, which is more a plain way of providing the data. So we were able to provide this kind of chart since we included all the information in Wikidata using Scholia. As I said before, we have a GitHub repository with all the information and also the extracted metadata. And as conclusions, we identified that results. So Wikidata has been used for different purposes in GLAMs. Wikidata reuse, an important FAIR principle, can be better integrated into the practice of GLAMs. So it's a good thing that we can still do additional things to increase Wikidata reuse. And next steps, as you can imagine, this was just a minor contribution regarding the scope of the review, and we could include additional articles, increase the dates for the analysis, and also include additional repositories in order to gather the articles. So now that I have introduced a little bit the work that we did and that we submitted to the TPDL, I wanted also to mention additional work that I have been doing regarding Wikidata this year. So the first thing is about using federated queries for data aggregation and avoiding data silos. And we have been working on the Spanish Golden Age and using several libraries. And this is an article that has been submitted to the ITAL journal. It's already accepted, and we are waiting for the publication. A second example is about the Spanish Civil War and exile and destruction as collections as data. And again, you can find a GitHub repository with all the information about how we did this work, also including reproducible code in the form of Jupyter notebooks. The third example is a collaboration with the Go Tripole project, which is about exploring research in humanities with a reproducible approach again. And we are also working on data quality in museums, and also on the exploration of text to knowledge graph approaches. And as you can see in all this work, you can identify the Wikidata logo, meaning that to some extent we use Wikidata in this research. But another question that I had is, what is the role of Wikidata in data research infrastructures? In Europe, we have at the moment many undergoing data research platforms. So what is the role of Wikidata regarding these infrastructures? I have been collaborating with a few of them, and I think it's relevant to identify what is the connection between Wikidata and all these initiatives. So in order to analyze how Wikidata and Wikibase can be used in digital humanities and in the context of TARIA, we recently created a working group, which is called DHWiki, and we are working in this sense to analyze the use of Wikibase and Wikidata in digital humanities. We will be publishing a white paper regarding these topics, and it should be published within a few months. And if you want to know more, please go to the website and have a look. Maybe you want to contact us. I'm co-chair of this working group, okay? And the chair is David Lindemann. And also, if you want to know more about the International GLAM Labs community, there are many ways in which you can contribute. We have recently published our new website, thanks to Olga and also Mahendra. We have a mailing list, we have a Slack channel. In November the 6th, we will have a webinar, so please have a look to the website and you will see the program and the time and the link to connect to this event. Again, if you want to appear in the map, let us know about your Wikidata, well, about the identifier of your organization in Wikidata. You can also share if you have Jupyter notebooks or even a project regarding digital humanities or GLAM Labs. And last but not least, in July, we had an event regarding my role with Wikimedia Spain. We had an online event regarding GLAM, and we are thinking about having a GLAM event in person in Madrid, possibly early next year. So please stay tuned just in case you want to join us. And these are some references. And this is a thank you for the invitation, but also my colleagues at the International GLAM Labs community, and of course, Milena and Olga, that they are here with me today. So thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Gustavo. It was great. And also you went on time, so we have plenty of time for Q&A. I'm not sure if there are questions on YouTube in the room already for your talk. I can start by that. So I very much like all the effort. Oh, I didn't switch on the camera. I very much like all the efforts in how to collaborate with GLAM institutions. So I would like if you can elaborate a bit on all the challenges that you might have encountered with them to release data on Wikidata, and how research could be posed to convince them on that way.
So as part of my role in Wikimedia Spain, I'm obviously trying to do this role. I first did this at the Biblioteca Virtual Miguel de Cervantes, which is a project at the University of Alicante. And after I did this work and I had a PhD thanks to this connection with Wikidata, I wanted to explore with other institutions. And so I did a fellowship at the National Library of Scotland, and I replicate the same work that I did at the Biblioteca Virtual Miguel de Cervantes, and then I did the same thing with another institutions. And the things that I found is that they lack the resources to do this additional task of connecting their bibliographic data to Wikidata. Sometimes they lack the knowledge too, so they need training, they need materials, but and also maybe they need funding to do this kind of work too. And I encourage at Biblioteca Virtual Miguel de Cervantes at the cataloging department that in addition to their work with the bibliographic data, they could go to Wikidata and also enrich the data, because they were going to get more visits, and they were going to enrich the data in a collaborative way. and it was always not easy to convince the institution to do this work. So, but if you check all the research articles that I have published during the last years, all of them to some extent use Wikidata for data quality, for data analysis, for data enrichment, for when using LLMs. All of them are to some extent based on Wikidata. And even in the International Grand Labs community, we have a map and we have all the information of the community in Wikidata. So I think it's a very useful resource to use. And but I think institutions, they need resources of all kind to be able to do this work too.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing all the kind of work that you and your team are doing. I think there were some questions on YouTube to Shani. So I don't know, Kinneret, if you can share them with us, with her. Okay.
Yeah, we can go back to those and then maybe some questions for both. So Shani, the first question, and let me go back to that, was from Jan. And he asked if you think the recently released Wikidata vector database and Wikidata MCP are enough to be that bridge for AI, or is something else needed?
Oh, thanks for that question. That's a brilliant question, Jan. I can share that I think it's a good beginning. I don't think in itself it can be a holistic solution because it's a complex issue that we're trying to solve. But I can share that working on AI bridges, I told you it can't be a one person's job. So I'm collaborating closely, and one of my collaborators is, of course, Wikimedia Deutschland. And first of all, I think Philippe, the person who actually developed the vector database and the MCP, this is a shout out for him. I was absolutely excited about this because my project has, in essence, 3 tiers or 3 aspects to it that are happening sort of simultaneously. One aspect I mentioned already, and that is how can we use Gen AI to help institutions donate their metadata in an easier way to our platforms. But the second tier is the other way, like how can we make sure that LLMs, when they give us an answer, actually tap into the richness of everything that was curated on Wikidata and later on Wikibases. So exploring these new technologies of rugs and the idea of rugs and the ideas of MCP is actually crucial for that. It's not the only thing, but it's an actual start. And I'm working with Wikimedia Deutschland to explore that further and understand what can we do with it really, and how can we make sure that we can use that to have more of provenance when LLMs give us answers. How can we have less content gaps? How can we make sure that this is helping us give better, more accurate answers to people who ask questions of LLMs? So this is a critical step in the right direction, and we actually just need more resources towards that type of experimentation in order to do more. But absolutely a good step in the right direction from my perspective.
Thank you, Shani. Kinneret, I think there is a second question, right?
Yes, there is. Shani, there's another question for you that I don't know, Gustavo, maybe you'll also want to chime in after Shani about this. One second, I'm going back to YouTube. This is from Richard. So he asked that you mentioned in your talk, you mentioned impact was mentioned in terms of use. And he asked, are there any other impact measures that can encourage people to contribute to Wikidata?
Absolutely. I mean, page views is one thing that is easy-ish enough for us to sort of track and report back. But the answer to your question, Richard, is actually a bit more elaborate. It would depend on this exact context. And like Gustavo can share probably more. But in the educational context, for instance, in my courses, I had specific learning objectives for my course. So to me, impact or measures of success would be tied to the learning objectives of what I wanted the students to learn. So it would be different in different contexts. And when it comes to cultural heritage or academic heritage, for institutions working with us and donating their data, they would have different measures, which is not just page views. They would want to see how much it's used, for instance, how much it's been expanded on or worked with, and how many cool things are done with the data that they share. So the short answer is it really depends on the context, and every context working with Wikidata or Wikibases would have its own goals and its own not just goals, but objectives to kind of reach. And that would be how you measure success and how you measure your impact. So that would depend on the context, is my short answer. Gustavo, maybe you can share more from your work.
Yes, thank you very much. And I would say that from my point of view, I would measure impact regarding reuse and in terms of how many examples are based on this data that you are providing. So, for instance, when I was doing this work at Biblioteca Virtual Miguel de Cervantes, after a few years, we were able to update the traditional website. So you were able to filter their traditional catalog using filters with data provided by Wikidata. So for me, this was just really cool to have something that was done as a result of this enrichment process. But in general, I think there's a lot of work to do regarding how to measure impact. And this is something that I would like to address within my research. I know about the framework called dCraft, and they try to provide a framework to analyze the impact of reuse, in this case, digital collections reuse. And I'm also working with the Europeana working group with a concept called datasets, in which you provide provenance information about your digital collection, including who is reusing this data, what kind of research is done regarding this data, what are the prototypes available that you can see and explore the data thanks to a web application or something like this. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but.
Thank you, Gustavo, and thank you, Shani, for sharing your question with Gustavo. I think there is also another YouTube question to Gustavo that then can be shared with Shani as well. Kinneret?
Yeah, I do have one more question. Shani, did you want to add one more comment on this question, though?
Yes, thank you. Just a tiny addition. You know, I think both Gustavo and I work in academia. We're researchers, and we like to measure things when we can. I always like to also mention that there's some things that it's very difficult to measure in terms of impact. Is such a vague thing, but I think it's when working with these platforms, and actually in all of our movement, I've seen it time and time again. It's sometimes hard to measure impact. Let's say that you give a child you let a child play the Wikidata game, the depicts game. He sees a picture and you ask him, what do you see in that picture? Is that a tree? Do you see a tree? Do you see a horse? And he clicks yes. He played a game for a second. But behind the scenes, there was a contribution to Wikidata. This is one of the cool things that our community have developed, the Wikidata games. How do you measure that? How do you measure the fact that this child now knows that they contributed something to the commons? You shift the minds of people sometimes in ways that you can't foresee the impact of. And I really love that stuff, right? It's the way that people come in to the engagement with the platform and get out of it absolutely in a different way that is sometimes unmeasurable. There are some, I mean, we can track the amount of edits we can track the amount of people who played, but it's not the same thing as understanding the impact that something like small like that may have on, like the ripple effect that it will have on the way that someone now engages with data. That the data literacy thing is quite elusive, I would say. And just a reminder to all of us that there are some things we can't measure, but it's still impactful. So thanks for allowing me to share that to the pot.
Yeah, thank you, Shani. That was very important addition, I think. And we have a final question, I think, for today. And this one, again, Gustavo, was for your talk, but I think, Shani, you might want to chime in as well. Sylvia mentions on YouTube that one challenge that she's seen is that many funding institutions fund quote unquote new things rather than building on the old. Did you ever need or try to convince funding institutions that Wikidata is acceptable?
Well, I still call Wikidata as a new thing. I don't know. But if I can add something, nowadays it's not only Wikidata. A few years ago, using Wikibase was kind of hard, but now it's very simple to have a Wikibase cloud service available. I know it is not easy to have a data modeling and to provide the data, and you have a Sparkle endpoint, but at least you have with one click a service that you can use to publish your data. So maybe we have to shift a little bit and say Wikibase instead of Wikidata, if you think that Wikidata already is all or something like this. But I think that Wikibase is a new thing that we have to explore in order to make available fair data, for instance.
And actually, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I share Gustavo's sentiment in essence that this is an ecosystem. Wikidata was never meant, especially when you think of the concept of the semantic web, right? If you heard Danny Vrendicic, who was one of the founders of Wikidata, he always talks about how the semantic web was meant to be just that. It was supposed to be a web. It can't be just one single website that is doing that. So in that sense, Wikidata is part of an ecosystem, of a network, of a web of websites that are supposed to be doing that. And I think in today's world, I absolutely sympathize with the lady who asked, I'm assuming it's a lady who asked the questions about funding. It is difficult to fund anything that is not related to AI these days. That's just a reality. But I think here I am standing here and in a fellowship that was doing just that, right? Finding the bridges between different older technologies that exist. And by the way, I share Gustavo's second sentiment that Wikidata is young still. It's just 13. It's an adolescent now. It has been with us for a few years, but it's still very new in terms of how we're engaging with it on a larger scale. And so there's still so much to explore and so much to do. And I'm actually very, very excited to the coming years to see how Gen AI can help us expand the impact of Wikidata and Wikibases to help humanity actually share more of its knowledge. So I think all in all, it's good hurdles to have because they force us to sort of look for new ways to navigate between different technologies and making sure that we're remaining relevant to the world and giving the service that people need and finding people where they actually are. And Gustavo is right, Wikibase is easier because of cloud, but it's still very much complex. So hopefully we can make it much, much easier for people to collaborate with us in the coming years. This is what I'm hoping to see.
Thank you, Shani. Danny Vrendicic was actually the host of the showcase we had 3 years ago for the 10th anniversary. Today I'm the host and I'm as happy as Danny was to be here with these two excellent speakers. Thank you very much for your talks, your comments. It has been a privilege to have you today, but sadly it's time for the closure. So my colleague Kinneret, you can proceed. Thank you.
Thanks, Pablo. And thank you everyone for joining us today and participating in today's discussion. I know we didn't get to all of the comments and the question towards the end, so please feel free to reach out to the speakers. I'd also encourage you to check out the YouTube after to see more comments posted about your talks. I also want to thank the WMF research team and of course our speakers, Janine, Gustavo, and their co-authors for their work on this paper. I want to say a special thanks also to Wikidata contributors. We're celebrating the project. I know we mentioned the contributors. This couldn't happen without you, so I hope this research showcase was also another nice reminder about sort of the importance and impact of 13 years of your work. The Wikimedia Research Showcase, this specific one, was made possible thanks to a coordination team with my colleagues, Diego, Pablo, Debra. Thank you all. Special thanks to Martin from our team for his support for this particular showcase as well. And we hope to see you all again here in November for another showcase focusing on MPOV. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a privilege to be here and celebrate with you.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. This was such a good event. Thank you.
1 second. We are offline.